There, the 2 academic minutes have passed, and I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar, Health Challenges in the Wake of the War. How can Sweden assist Ukraine? On the night of February 24th, Russia launched the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. And the war has escalated with recurrent reports of civilian targets, including hospitals, patients, and medical personnel. Each day brings new horrors to Ukraine. And according to reports from several human rights organizations, Russian attacks have violated the laws of war that could amount to war crimes. Millions of people have fled Ukraine to seek refuge internally in Ukraine and in nearby countries. The purpose of this webinar is to present an update on the situation in Ukraine from a medical perspective and discuss how we best can support Ukraine and work together in this situation. The webinar has been planned by the Swedish Society of Medicine's Global Health Committee by Anna Theresia Ekman and Lotta Velin. So today's webinar, first, we are joined by Annabrador, the chairperson of the Ukrainian Medical Students Association, IMFSA, who will give us a brief update about the state of health and humanitarian consequences of the war in Ukraine. After that, we will move to, one minute. After that, we'll move to Professor Olesya Hulci, the Vice Rector for International Cooperation at the Chupik National Healthcare University of Ukraine, who is currently in Stockholm, working closely with the Embassy of Ukraine to organize support to the Ukrainian healthcare system. And she will tell us about the needs and the possible support that we can give and how we can work together. After that, we will move to Professor Ole Petter Ottersen, the president of Karolinska Institutet, who will present work related to the Center for Health Crisis at Karolinska Institutet and how this new center is engaged in the support to Ukraine. And finally, but not least, we will hear from Eugene Bushayia, development advisor for specialist medical doctors from Doctors Without Borders, who will share information about the organization's work in Sweden and Ukraine related to the war. After these short updates, we will have a discussion where you have the possibility to ask questions through the Q&A function in Zoom, and you can write them either in Swedish or English. And please start writing in the Q&A already now during the presentations, because we will not take a break for Q&As, but we take them all after the 4 presentations. With that, I would like to hand over to you, Annabrador, the chairperson of the Ukrainian Medical Students Association. A warm welcome and thank you so much for joining from Ukraine.
So, okay, hi everyone again. Introducing myself, my name is Annabrador, and I am president of Ukrainian Medical Students Association, national member organization of the IFMSA. And I'm a medical student of the 5th year of study. And as all of you know, on the 24th of February, we faced a war. As I suppose to make an update what is going on in Ukraine from the medical student side and how are we affected, to explain the situation due to medical students and some medical healthcare professionals. So actually for now, when the war started, of course, all the educational process was interrupted. Of course, the education cannot continue and no one can think about the education when the war comes, when you see people struggle in your country. For making everything clear, I live in a safe space, in a safe region where the refugees come to escape the war, to save their lives, their families, and where they try to find a shelter. So, so since the war began, we had lots of troubles with the educational process. It was interrupted. For now, all the institutions and universities try to continue studying in a way it is possible. Mostly we study online, but as you understand, when the war comes to your country and you see all the crimes made to your people, to your country, to your relatives and friends, it is impossible to think about the education. Truly impossible. You cannot think about anything except the war and how to help people you love, how to help people you're friend with, how to help them to escape all those crimes and all those problems. So mostly students are volunteering. They are volunteering as healthcare professionals in hospitals where it is possible. They volunteer as Red Cross members. They try to help refugees mentally. They try to help refugees with all the knowledge they gained till the end of medical school. For example, last year, students tried to help with something really easy that general practitioner can kind of help people. So they try to manage and they try to help in any possible way. All the students are volunteering and trying to teach civilians how to help in the situations if they were left alone and they need a medical care urgently. What can they do? What can they do with their own hands and what can be done? And of course, for now, it is very difficult to continue education. Even universities understand that, and they also made kind of Google form. It depends on the university, but for example, mine has done a Google form where you could apply as a volunteer, and that's an honorable reason to miss your classes, to miss your lectures. So you will get an extra hours where you can do them again and pass all the topics you have. From the medical side, also about the students, we have a huge outflow of medical students that are coming abroad, of course, because they were rescuing themselves. For example, Kiev students or Kharkiv students. We had two medical universities there, named by Karazin and Kharkiv State Medical University. Lots of students lost their families, their houses, their flats. All day and all the time we hear stories from our friends that I lost my house, I don't have any money, guys, could you please help me somehow? And all of students gather their own money, just send them to their bank accounts, like just anything we can have, because we're students, we didn't have a high salary or anything, but we tried to support our friends financially, mentally. We are always asking each other about how are you and what is going on with you? Are you safe? We have a huge outflow, and I suppose that lots of them will stay there, and that's going to be kind of sad for Ukraine because lots of smart, enthusiastic future medical workforce is going to live abroad. And that's quite sad because it's a huge outflow of medical healthcare professionals that are really needed for now. Still, lots of students and lots of interns, I suppose, is something like residents abroad. They are already in the frontline hospitals working and helping military people that were injured, and lots of them are doing their job as paramedics, even if they were therapists or anything. I suppose that's it. So it's quite a chaotic situation in medical workforce, I suppose, but we try to manage it. Even as students, we try to provide any help we can provide, to ask any organizations we can that how can we help, where can we do anything, anything. Yeah, that's it, I suppose.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's almost difficult to understand the situation, what you explain, but it's so important for us to hear what you are doing in the country to support your people in your country. And I'm just very, very impressed what you organize and all your fellow students and colleagues in Ukraine. And very, very impressed. And thanks for sharing that. And please write questions to Anna. With that, I will hand over from Anna to Professor Olesya Hulchi, the Vice Rector for International Cooperation at the Chupik National Healthcare University of Ukraine, and now at the Embassy of Ukraine here in Stockholm, to coordinate medical support to Ukraine. Over to you, Olesya.
Olesya. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay. Dear colleagues and friends, I'm from Kiev, my native city where I was born and trained as a medical doctor. Now I'm Vice Rector for International Cooperation at the Chupik National Healthcare University of Ukraine and working here in Stockholm with the Embassy of Ukraine. More than 25 years of intense experience in international cooperation with different countries, different institutions, WHO, Regional Committee for Europe, Council of Europe, Committee for Bioethics, and of course, for more than 15 years, cooperation with Karolinska Institutes is taking the absolutely as a special place in this range of international cooperation. From 2006, were conducted 8 research training projects in surgery, in pediatrics, in gynecology, in epidemiology with your prominent professors under their supervision, Professor Angelika Linden-Hirschberg, Professor Ole Söder, Jan Zadenius, and Tommy Lina was a local coordinator. I could never imagine that one time I'll be here in Stockholm after 16 years of fruitful cooperation in such a role, in assisting my country to survive and to organize the medical today, the 28th day of Russian invasion and Russian terror of our country. Up to official information, WHO data, more than 18 hospitals were bombed in Ukraine, in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, in Kiev, in other cities, including delivery hospitals and children hospitals. 1,012 children were killed, more than 140 were wounded, and among victims, pregnant women with their unborn children, with their unborn kids, and medical staff as well. 1.5 million of our children are still on the territory which are bombed or blocked without any possibilities to provide humanitarian aid. 3.3 million of refugees. This is the largest refugee crisis in Europe since Second World War. And also the main question, what can we do here in Sweden? I would like to divide this question to 2 parts: politically and professional. On the political level, what can we do? We can support governments, we can support policymakers to provide a strong political decision in support our country, in sending, for example, international peace corps to Ukraine, to close the airspace over Ukraine, or at least equipped our army with deadly weapons, joined and support Ukraine in joint U.S. European Union family. From professional points of view, also we can switch to two directions. It's at medical and educational. From medical needs and medical aids for now. It's providing medications and equipment to the hospitals in Ukraine. And right now, I know that several cargoes were being addressed to Ukraine through Poland, and they reached their addresses in the hospital of Ukraine. And it's a great thanks to local authorities and to Karolinska Institute. Also, I would like to thank Karolinska Institute and Rector for declining all cooperation with Russian universities. But I think that in this line has to be also Belarus, who supports a lot Putin's regime in this war. So another need is the patients with chronic diseases, patients who are refugees, and right now I also know that several of them ongoing their treatment at Karolinska and local hospitals. It's about children and about adults, but for children, the number of cause of this patient will rise, because now in Lviv, in our Western Ukrainian pediatric hospital, accumulated children with the chronic diseases, and not only that, wounded children. So the number of them will be higher in Sweden. Right now, they refer to Poland, to France, to Italy, but the capacity of medical system of Sweden also allowed to do that. So it has to be prepared, the system, for the wounded patients with bullet wounds and with burns. Another that for refugees here is very, very important to have not only medical but psychological aid, especially for women with kids who are now resettled in Sweden and try to find their places here. It's a medical. It's our clinical professional. Our points of view. What can we do from Karolinska? For Ukrainian hospital, we can provide the consultation, not theoretically, but precise in specific clinical cases on the distance mode using telemedicine. Provide the consultation for particular clinical cases in field of intensive care, reconstructive surgery, orthopedic and traumatology, and so on. And it will be highly appreciated. Taking into the consideration that Karolinska Institute is the leader of medical education worldwide, we have to point it out the educational component of our aid. To our professionals, healthcare professionals now in Ukraine will be highly demanded the short course training courses in delivery of critical care during the war in military medicine. So 2-3 day courses we can conduct it together with Karolinska, or develop together with Karolinska Institute, and performed it for our audiences. Also, among refugees, it will be persons with health professionals, and Karolinska Institute and other universities as well can provide for them orientation education courses, how to be implemented to the Swedish healthcare system, because also because human resources for health is also a problem in different countries. And as far as expecting a lot of people coming from Ukraine, let us Ukrainian doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals to provide additional care for them. And also in medical students, we right now heard the Anna. I appreciate very much what they are doing, because our students as well, our internship doctors as well, providing the medical care in the hospital in our country. But how, for those of them who are now here, how to provide the continuing education. A lot of them speak English, and I don't think that it will be a problem. As far as our curricula in Ukraine started from 2004, was based on European credit transfer system, and we harmonized our curriculum for providing education and the undergraduate education for doctors in Ukraine. So it can be another big question for us, and I'm ready to contact with the officials from Karolinska Institute who will be interested in this angle of our cooperation. And also, please know very well that now Ukraine struggle fighting not only for Ukraine and Ukrainians. Ukraine now starting for Europe, and Ukraine now defends the greatest humanitarian and civilization values. And together, no way for Russian invasion, no way to conquest our country. We are on the first line, but we feel a great support from your country, from your university, and from your nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for Alessia. And as you say, we really want you to feel that we're in this together, although we can't do as much as you do in Ukraine, but we want to support you in all ways what we can do. And that's why we're here today. And thanks for clearly stating this, the political level, the professional level, and looking at both the medical and the educational perspective. And I think that's a perfect segue over to Ole Petter Ottersen, the president of Karolinska Institute. Mm-hmm. Over to you, Ole Petter.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to this very important webinar. And I would say at the very beginning, a thank you to Anna and Olesia for giving their testimonies as to their experiences when it comes to this humanitarian crisis that we experience now in Europe. I think, Tobias, we all feel powerless when confronted with this tragic development that we see in Ukraine. And the question is exactly what is the title of this seminar? How can we in Sweden assist Ukraine in this very difficult situation in this war? It's very important to note that a university like Karolinska Institute, a leading medical university, should help out where we have our competencies. And as Olesia pointed out, our competence as a university lies in research, education, and public outreach. And I dare say we are trying our best to help within all these three core activities. Tobias, you asked me to speak specifically on the establishment of our Center for Health Crisis, and I will do so. The Center for Health Crisis at Karolinska Institute was established already last summer, but the director was not appointed until, in fact, about a week before the war started in Ukraine. And the director, Johan von Schreeb, is currently, in fact, in Moldova, and he has just completed a training, an exercise, an education in 13 different intensive care units in Moldova to prepare for what will eventually happen, unfortunately, that they will have to receive traumatized patients, people from Ukraine. There is a high risk that the neighboring countries will have to step up to this challenge, receiving patients with injuries from Ukraine. Johan von Schreer, the director of the center, will now travel to Lviv in Western Ukraine, and also there try to help out by coordinating the efforts that are needed to take care of injured people and also injured soldiers in Lviv and in the different hospitals in the vicinity of Lviv. So in fact, the Center for Health Crisis is already in the field, so to speak, in order to help out in this tragic crisis. When it comes to education, I'm happy to say that we are in contact with Bogomolets University in Kiev. I've spoken to the rector there. Last week was the last time I did so. And there is a telemedicine course, in fact, running this week to Bogomolets. And this has to do with, again, how to deal with intensive care units when patients come in with different types of injuries. So we are trying our best also to draw on our competence when it comes to education in this very crisis. So contacts with Bogomolets in Kyiv, and also an effort to support the neighboring countries, which we now will be challenged quite a lot during this crisis. And they are already challenged with the influx of refugees, for example. I should also mention that we are trying to do what we can, and Olesia was touching upon this, to see if we could help here in Sweden when we have an influx of refugees. So in fact, yesterday I was in touch with the Stockholm region, the healthcare system, to see if we can offer our competence as to how to integrate refugees in the Swedish healthcare system and in the Swedish society at large, and also to deal with the psychological trauma that always accompany migrants and refugees when they enter Sweden from other countries. So this is also something that we would like to do, to offer our competence when it comes to the integration of refugees and also to deal with psychological trauma and PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. The final thing I would like to say is, of course, as Olesia also pointed out, we have a third task as a university, not only education and research, but also public outreach. And what we have done now, which I think is extremely important, is that we have a list of experts on the web that will give every journalist, but also the society at large, a possibility to benefit from the competence that we have when it comes to the different medical aspects of a crisis and of a war. In fact, in many ways, a war is primarily a health crisis, if you think about it. So as a medical university, I think we have an obligation to do our very best to support. And I dare say we are trying to step up to the challenge. And I do hope, Olesia, that we can reach all the different kinds of collaborative efforts that are needed in this very precarious situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ole Petter, for explaining what we're already doing from the Karolinska Institute and also the plans for what we can do and further collaborate in the future with you, Olesia, and the people in Ukraine in this, as you said, health crisis, where we all feel a bit or very much powerless and would like to do more, but we do what we can and want to get input on how we can strengthen this work together. And as part of that, I would like to invite Eugène Bouchaïa from Doctors Without Borders. Welcome, Eugène.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you for inviting me, for inviting Médecins Sans Frontières to be part of this important discussion. As you know, Médecins Sans Frontières is a humanitarian international medical organization dealing with crisis, dealing with people that are affected by crisis, and the people of Ukraine are affected by what is happening there. And we, from 24th of February, we mobilized our crisis preparedness, which includes to plan for material medicine that are needed, so the logistical part, but as well as medical professionals that are needed in different situations. Of course, we are used to work in a similar condition in many other countries, and we always start by trying to find out how best we can help the people, what are their needs, which also take time. We knew from the beginning when it started that one thing that is going to be lacking will be medicine and medical material, because I mean, with the war, the restriction to get them in the country is going to develop. So the first thing that we did was to send material and medicine to different hospitals in Ukraine. We had the advantage compared to many others that we have been working in Ukraine for a long time and have forged different networks of doctors, nurses, and other professionals that we've been working with and continue to work with. Many of them, of course, are affected as well as people, but they also try to continue to help their citizens, and we try to help. So we thought we would also start with working with mass casualty, with surgery activities, but we noticed with the hospital that we are in contact with that they have very good, capable professionals, but what they lack is mainly medicine and medical material. And we have been, I mean, in Kiev, in Zhytomyr, in Vinnytsia, there, and we have been providing material and medicine. We have also started to do teaching, like teaching in mass casualty management in both Kiev, Zhytomyr, and Vinnytsia, and we are starting mobile clinics because there are a lot of people on the move in different, within Ukraine, but also in the neighboring countries. We have activities going on in all the neighbor countries to try to help the refugee coming across the border, and trying also to alleviate the burden to the countries where they go. So mainly we are working to continue to assess the needs, because we have an organization that can adapt very quickly to the needs that arise. Just for the moment, about mobile clinics, about teaching, about mass casualty management and distribution of medicine and medical material. In the future, depending on how this continues, we will continue to adapt our intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for explaining what you're doing and the plans for the future for Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. With that, I would like to open up for comments and questions. And the first question we got, that was to Annabrador from Bengt Sturesson, who asked in which city that Anna is studying. And Anna had to leave now, I think, and continue her work in Ukraine, but she was studying and is studying in Uzhhorod. And then the second question that we had is from Helge Lochner, and I think that's to both Olesya and Eugene, but mostly to you, Olesya. Is there a need for Swedish medical doctors coming to Ukraine as volunteer, even to Western parts like Lviv? And if yes, whom can we contact? Olesya and Eugene, what do you think about this?
Yeah. I think that human resources for health are also questions to be fulfilled, and volunteering doctors from abroad now for Ukraine needed, invited health professionals as as well. Even so, it can be acute care in the central and northern eastern part of Ukraine, and it's also can be at the western Ukraine. You mentioned Uzhgorod, where Anna studied, Uzhgorod State University, and I know from representative of that university that now Uzhgorod has patients, injured patients from the after active military incidents. So for Western Ukraine, also it can be useful. I mean, health professionals. You can contact me, and I refer it to our ambassador and to Ministry of Health of Ukraine. But what right now we needed is teleconsultation. I mentioned that when I previously talked. And you could provide, for example, in your time after active work in the hospital, to consult a concrete clinical case. Our doctors also speak English, or we will assist in this process. So you can do it distantly now.
And that's also a good alternative. There are many different options. Thanks for that, Olesia. And then we have a comment from Bengt Sturesson. And Teresa, if you can let Bengt Sturesson open up his mic, and he would like to comment on how they work from Ängelholm in Sweden with Chernivtsi in Ukraine. Bengt, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Well, my name is Bengt Sturesson. I'm an orthopedic surgeon in Ängelholm, and I've been working with Ukraine for 30 years. Already in 1994, we started an educational program to the university in Chernivtsi and continue with that for 10 years. And after that, we have continued to support the doctors there in the hospital now known as Ängelholm from the television as well. I think the most important for everybody to realize that everybody can do something. As a professional doctor, you can't do everything, but something. And the good thing is you can have a relation with somebody. The doctors in Ukraine, as we heard, they are very qualified. They know much more about war than we do. Some of them also served in the Afghanistan war, and they had the war in the East Ukraine for 8 years. So they are quite good at that in different ways. But nevertheless, we also heard that they need equipment, they need medicine, and we had actually sent free deliveries the first 3 weeks in the war, first to Zhytomyr and then to Lviv. And together with the Ukrainian hospital, we worked directly to the military hospitals who'd send from that hospital out where it's needed. Now I know that after 3 weeks in Europe, materials and medicine is coming out with big trucks. So that is not so important anymore. But what they now request from the hospitals, I have contact with Professor Kostyakov in Lviv as well, and it's external fixation. And I have been searching for external fixation by the companies, but they said, oh, there is some central storage and we have nothing, anything more. So I think it's important to have a possibility to send things out in a good way. And that is the problem now as well. We are not allowed to send medicine from our association, but we did because it was needed. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Bengt, for sharing what you have been doing and also showing the long-standing collaboration, and now that you can step up and change what you're doing into the current needs. And I think it's good to follow up regarding the external fixation and how we can provide assistance to what's needed. And that's so important what you raised there, Bengt. That's really what the needs are in Ukraine at the moment and not what we have here to ship. Otherwise, we can create more problems than doing good.
I would say, do you hear me?
Yes.
If I can have external fixation sent to me in my department, Aleris in Ängelholm, in the beginning of next week, or also in the end, I can deliver it to the hospitals in Ukraine during the weekend, because we plan our next trip to on Saturday morning.
Then we have some more homework to do, and I will give Ole Petter will leave. Everybody will just get one final short comment before we need to wrap up, unfortunately. So Ole Petter, I know that you will need to leave, so if you want to have a last word. You're on mute, Ole Petter.
Yes, I have to leave in 2 minutes, but I think Bengt's intervention tells it all, how important it is to have open communication lines to Ukraine, to know exactly what is needed and what is perhaps not as urgent at the moment. And this also shows the value of this webinar, that we are exchanging ideas and that we are testing our experiences when it comes to the situation at hand. What is needed is really a unique sort of collaboration across sectors, across institutions, across countries, to really help out in this very precarious situation. And I must say that the willingness to help is impressive. And we should all do what we can to help, even though, as you say, Tobias, we happen to feel a bit powerless in this very tragic situation. So I would like to say, please, Eugene and Alicia, Anna, who's left us, we should stay in touch and do our very best. Thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you very much, Ole Petter, for joining and bringing in Karolinska Institute to this work. And with that, I would like to ask Eugene for a final word.
Yes, let me start by thanking you because organizing this, because I believe and I know that many health professionals in Sweden are very keen or want to help out in Ukraine. We have been contacted by a huge number of health professionals who want to go with the Doctor Without Borders to help in Ukraine. We have, unfortunately, not the capacity to integrate all of them, but I believe that they continue to be needed. What I'm saying here is that depending on how things progress in Ukraine, we might see more need that we see today. And in that perspective, I would like to encourage anyone working in healthcare to be ready when we call, and I hope we'll come to that point. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eugene. Be ready when called and stay in touch and be informed and do what we can. With that, I would like to give the last word. Anna unfortunately had to leave, but to you, Alessia, as the representative from the Embassy of Ukraine, and the last word to you before I wrap up.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Tobias, for your initiative and for your preparing this important webinar to put us in touch. I think that we have to treat this webinar is only the start of our coordination, as the president of KI mentioned. We have to continue our strong cooperation, intersectoral, inter-institution. And thanks a lot for giving me that floor to talk to you and to check in our minds, and also I'm taking this chance to stay in touch with all of you in the future, and especially with Karolinska Institute in educational sphere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alessia. So important to have you here in Stockholm and working with us all, and everybody who is also online listening. I'm sure someone gets an idea, something we can do. And I would like to finish with 2 more quick slides. The first one is that, as Bengt said, everyone can do something, and I think it's important that we all try to do things together. And a starting point can be to support, for example, Doctors Without Borders or UNHCR. And if you want to support, here you have the Swish numbers and more information about the activities. And there are other organizations also doing important work. These are just examples that we from the Swedish Society of Medicine have supported, both Doctors Without Borders and UNHCR, and we will continue with that. The other, what Olesya said and also Ole Petter, this is just a starting point that we need to continue working together. And we, the Swedish Society of Medicine, will continue working with this as the Karolinska Institute and other partners. And we are also planning now during fall to continue these discussions and having a bigger meeting about healthcare in crisis and looking at pandemics, migration, climate change, wars and conflicts, and how these different issues are linked together, and how we as healthcare professionals, academias, and students can work together on these issues. And you can always look at our webpage, www.sls.se. And if you have an idea, something you would like to contribute with, don't hesitate to write to program@sls.se, where we have Teresa, who's organized the webinar behind the scenes here from the Swedish Society of Medicine, Svenska Läkarsällskapet. And with that, I got the final comment here about the external fixation, and we follow up with that with everybody, with you, Bengt, so we try and get the external fixation that you need. So it's not only talk, but concrete action, which I think is so important. And with that, I would like to thank especially Anna and Olesya from Ukraine and letting us know what's happening and how we can work together. And then also Ole Petter and Nirjen, and now Bengt also for sharing your experiences and your work, and everybody who took the time over the lunch to listen here. Please keep in touch. We're in this together, and we will continue working on this together. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.